What is up, fellow cinephiles? Today I'm back again with another video. I am going to be ranking the all A24 films I have seen. If A24 sounds familiar, they're the company that's put out films like Hereditary, Lady Bird, Midsommar, Moonlight, Best Picture winner, Room, Ex Machina, Uncut Gems, The Lighthouse, and many, many more that I'm not going to go on and say, but they put out just a plethora of content and great films. I've only seen 18 of their films. I haven't hated any of the films that I've watched. So even the film that's going to be 18th to the film that's going to be number 1. I don't hate any of them. It's just from how much do I like to really, really love. So getting that out of the way, if yours is really low, it's more of a personal preference, and I find the film more memorable. I find the characters better crafted and the story better executed. To start, in 18th place, I've only seen 18 of their films, Life After Beth. I saw this on Netflix, was it 2 or 3 weeks ago? It had Aubrey Plaza in it and John C. Reilly. A couple other familiar faces, but I couldn't quite take their names out there. It was an interesting concept. I can tell it tried to be a zombie comedy with a bit of heart to it. It didn't nail it very much because the drama or the emotional parts weren't quite there, because not every single actor had the right amount of chemistry with each other and the right type. The humor wasn't all quite there. They didn't nail some of the jokes for me. It came across as just odd and weird. But if the premise intrigues you, maybe you'll like Life After Beth. It fell a little flat for me, but not so much that I hated it. In 17th place is The Rover, starring Guy Pearce and Robert Pattinson. What was interesting about this one was this came out before Good Time or The Lighthouse, but I watched both of those and really started to like Robert Pattinson as an actor, and I watched this one, and it kind of went back. I'm like, but his Robert Pattinson's performance was still really good. It was just, the film was very focused on Guy Pearce's character, which Guy Pearce does a good job, of course. The only reason The Rover is so low is because the ending didn't feel all that explained. The ending felt somewhat rushed, not fully rushed. It wasn't quite there for me to fully understand and stick with me. It was one of those endings where I went, oh, they went there so you could relate to him, rather than, oh, wow, that's actually a good character. You know, you had the beginning, you thought he was this way, but really he was a different way. They didn't really fully execute that. And if you've watched the film, you know the ending. He's going after his car that gets stolen. He finally gets the car. He drives off into this like desert area. It's a post-apocalyptic film, so a lot of desert areas. And then he opens his trunk and there's a dead dog. We don't know what relation he has to that dog. Was it just a pet that he had? Was it a pet of significance? Was it like a John Wick thing where his significant other, it was her last gift to him? We don't know. All we know is he just wants to bury the dog. So it felt like a cheap attempt to make people like the character, because he felt a little bit edgy here and there. But I like an edgy character here and there. It feels grounded, because not everyone is Mr. Sally Sunshine. So that's kind of why The Rover is in 17th place. And then 16th place, I have Under the Skin. Under the Skin is a film written and directed by Jonathan Glazer and starring Scarlett Johansson. Under the Skin's visuals do deserve, if we're going to rank it off visuals, then this deserves to be in like a top 5, top 3 list of A24 films. It truly does. The only problem is its story is so confusing on a first watch, you have to watch it multiple times. Nothing wrong with watching a film multiple times if it has that rewatch value, but you shouldn't have to watch a movie multiple times to understand its story. Now, to understand more elements, understand more twists, more characters, their thoughts, why actions happened, yes, that makes a film better. But to just understand the story, I feel like that's not what it should be. You shouldn't have to do that when you're making a film. You should be able to make the film one time, a person watch it one time, and be able to at least understand what they watched, at least beginning to end, in terms of a story, a general story. I watched this character, this happened to him, he reacted this way, and because of that, these things happen, credits roll. Whereas with Under the Skin, you're kind of just there for it. A few things happen that you can understand, a message here or there, credits roll. You got to watch it a couple times. I've only seen it one time. I am open to rewatch it because the visuals are very, very good. They're some of the best visuals of any of the A24 films I've seen. But it's just not quite there on just first watch. You understand what was going on for a film. And in 15th place, we have First Reformed. This is by Paul Schrader. I believe he was the writer of Taxi Driver, not the director. Obviously, I know that's Martin Scorsese. And you can see the similarities between Reverend Toller and Travis Bickle. You can see those similarities in those characters. So those similarities are there. They do exist. Is there enough different? Somewhat. I mean, the world that the characters are set in. If you love the Travis Bickle character, you're going to automatically like Reverend Toller's character, at least to some extent. I do think they went a bit over the top with the religious things, but that's more the director wanting to implicate that because he wanted to have some reference to religion because that's where he was and is now at this point in his life. So I can understand and respect that idea. It didn't fully work for me. It's not a religious story. So at least it's not that. It's a story about a priest, but it follows the priest as a person while having to be a priest as well. And I found that interesting rather than just, hey, it's a priest doing things in a church. You know, that was kind of, but they actually explored them as a human or as a character, then I'm okay with that. And they kind of balanced it, but still when they did the religious things, it felt just a little too much for me. But I did still enjoy the character quite a bit. Just, that was kind of, it knocked it down a few notches for me. So First Reformed is in 15th place. And in 14th place, we have While We're Young. And if that sounds familiar, it may not, but it needs to. It's one of the most underrated movies made by A24. It's directed and written by the same person who did Marriage Story, Noah Baumbach. Very, very good film, Marriage Story. I still have yet to watch all the way through that just because I'll get into that if people want me to. If you guys want me to, then you can, down in the comments or whatever, say, hey, let us know why you haven't finished Marriage Story. It's one of those things where I'll eventually finish it. It's not like it's too long of a movie. It's a movie that for whatever reason, there are a few films out there, but some do. They just hit hard in the feels. It's hard to watch them all the way through. And that was one with Marriage Story. But Marriage Story and While We're Young, both great films. While We're Young is another good one. Highly underrated, starring Ben Stiller, Naomi Watts, Adam Driver, Amanda Seyfried. Gotta watch it. Gotta watch it. I'm not going to tell too much about it because I don't want to. Watch the trailer. And if you're already interested by the trailer, you're going to really like it. You really are. So that comes to 13th place. Killing of a Sacred Deer. Killing of a Sacred Deer and The Lobster were made by the same director, Yorgos Lanthimos. He did a couple of other films I've yet to see. They were foreign films before he started doing American releases or, stuff in the English language. He did Dogtooth and Alps, I believe. Those are two films I've yet to see of his work, but I will eventually check those out because his style is unique. It's bold. It's something I haven't seen any filmmaker do. Do I fully love it? No. Is he my favorite director? No, because his style is just so different. It's just so not used. It's so not used to what I'm used to seeing in film. But that's a good thing. You know what you're getting then. You're not getting something ripped off from Martin Scorsese, or you're not getting something pulled, not someone just attempting to be a Tarantino. You're getting a distinct execution. So that's the biggest positive. In Killing of a Sacred Deer, the thing with Yorgos, he also has a couple of films that both of them have Colin Farrell. Colin Farrell was good in this, as he was in The Lobster, as we'll get to that later. I do think he was better in this film, though, because I think this film, Killing of a Sacred Deer, embraces that ability. It embraces the ability to showcase more emotion, more range, and a more dramatic performance. The tension's more heightened for Colin Farrell's character, so it just works better as a film. For me, I like it when we get to see those types of things rather than just kind of dry lack of emotion. But I know in the Lobster it was played for humor. So yeah, that would wrap up Killing of a Sacred Deer in 13th place. In 12th place is another underrated film, A Most Violent Year. This stars Jessica Chastain. This stars Oscar Isaac. Those are two I can come up with right off the bat. Very underrated movie. If you like mob flicks, if you like crime drama flicks, you're going to love A Most Violent Year. It has an old school feel, but with updated technology. When films can mix the old school feel with the new school technology, it works really well for me. And A Most Violent Year does that. A Most Violent Year, I thought I'd put it higher on this list. Its rewatch value is kind of high. It's not as high as some of the films that are like in my top 3. So that's kind of why it's not so up there. I feel like its rewatch value isn't fully there as some of the other ones that are higher on this list. So I ranked them on multiple factors, from rewatch value to entertainment level, memorability, originality, story execution, character crafting, you know, all these different factors that went into it. And A Most Violent Year still ranks higher than, you know, a good chunk of them, and it should. It's good. I recommend it if you like those films. You'll like A Most Violent Year. I'll understand. I'll have to do research on how it was able to fly under the radar, because it is a good film, but it flew under a lot of people's radar. Even some A24 fans haven't seen it. So if you're an A24 fan, you gotta check it out. It's good. In 11th place, we have The Lobster. So not too much higher than Killing of a Sacred Deer, but slightly. I've come around on it. I'll accept it as the better made film. Still, from a story standpoint and acting, I prefer the type of acting Colin Farrell did in The Killing of a Sacred Deer as opposed to The Lobster. But from a film concept, a story concept, the execution, The Lobster is better. Did the humor quite work for me? No, I found it a bit dark in ways where I wasn't laughing. But it was supposed to be a dark comedy. It had some moments that were kind of funny. It had good characters. It had a story that I wasn't fully predicting, so that was good. There were some things I didn't expect to happen that happened, so that was nice. So I was able to get along for the ride. So I'll give it to The Lobster more, because Killing of a Sacred Deer, I started to put some pieces together. So from a script level, Lobster's better, so I'll give it to The Lobster and put it above Killing of a Sacred Deer. That's why it's in 11th place. In 10th place, we have Hereditary. I love Hereditary, okay? Is it my favorite horror film ever made? No, but I do love it. I do really, really like it. There are scenes that I remember. That car scene where, gosh, I feel so bad for forgetting their names. But, you know, when the daughter's having the allergic reaction to the nuts, and he's having to attempt to drive her to the hospital, that scene scares me every time, because it's a classic misdirect. They hit you with you expecting one thing to happen and something else entirely happens. So very, very good misdirection there in that scene. Ari Aster, he's able to not just craft good scary scenes that you're not expecting coming from that certain angle. He's also able to do good drama. You know, there's a fair dose of family drama in Hereditary, and Toni Collette's performance is amazing. So that's another positive. Toni Collette did an amazing job in the film. So that those were the if you're a horror fan, you have to watch Hereditary. Like, just give it a shot. Is it for everybody? No, I understand if you're kind of mixed on it, but it's just one of those films that's so original in what it's able to do in certain scenes, that, especially if you not just really like horror films like I do, but if you love film as well, you're going to see that originality. You're going to see that nuance to it, and you're going to like it. So that's why I enjoy Hereditary. Still, Not, I understand some people are going to have this in their top fives or top threes, maybe even number ones. Again, memorability, relatability. I don't relate to the story concept of Hereditary. I acknowledge it's well made, of course. I just don't relate to it, so that's why other films are ranked higher on the list. In ninth place, we have Good Time. This is the film starring Robert Pattinson and I think Benny Safdie. I think it was Benny Safdie. It was Josh and Benny Safdie are the writers and directors of it. I'm trying to remember which Safdie brother was the brother in the film to Robert Pattinson's character, Connie. Very, very good performance by Robert Pattinson. That Good Time is his best performance. And he deserves an Oscar for that performance. And for people who have only seen Twilight, watch these films. Watch The Lighthouse. Watch Good Time. Watch The Rover. I haven't seen Cosmopolis. I haven't seen High Life, so I don't know quite how his performances were in those. I've heard nothing but positive. I've heard a fair dose of positive things about both of those as well, so I'll eventually watch those. His performances in the three films I've seen, The Rover, The Lighthouse, Good Time, they're all amazing. They're all great performances. So that just shows that it was the script that was the problem. It was the people behind the camera. It wasn't the person standing in front of it. It was Robert Pattinson was doing the best he could. And he stated in interviews he didn't know how to play a vampire. You can see it on screen. He didn't know how to play it. They didn't do a good job explaining it. The script didn't really quite show the character and the shades and how that character would act and their personality, why they are the way they are. The script didn't do any of that very well. So that's why he struggled to portray the character, I think. But Robert Pattinson in these films for A24 has been nailing it in each every one I've seen. So just watch Good Time. It's the story of Robert Pattinson in this brother character played by one of the directors, one of the Safdie brothers. And what's so interesting about that is that character, that director who's also starring in it, he steals some scenes. I'm not saying that he needs to act in everything, but he was able to carry it and it not feel like, oh, a director starring in something to put himself out there. No, it felt like he genuinely understood what he was trying to do. He executed it. So kudos to, I think, Benny Safdie was able to do that. Kudos to him. So yeah, Good Time for the longest time was my number one. But after I watched a couple others, reflected on it, again, relatability, emotional reactions, characters, realism. Good Time's a good story. I could see it happening, but the realism of other films ranked higher is why Good Time kind of fell to this place. I don't think Good Time's ever going to fall in my top 10 because I just enjoy it so much. It's so well made. It's so unique. I also like how the Safdie brothers, if you watch this film, Good Time and Uncut Gems, their scores, their scores for their films, they have those synth, they're very synth wave inspired almost, in a way that you would think would be like 80s films. But they're able to craft that, and you should think, oh, it's just used to make a spectacle. They use that to create tension. And they're very good at doing that. So they're very good at doing anxiety-inducing, getting you on the edge of your seat, your heartbeat pumping. Then it doesn't have to be a horror film. The Safdie brothers do that very well. So that puts Good Time, for me, up there as number 9. Number 8, this is an unpopular opinion. A lot of people have this ranked a lot higher, but Ex Machina. Ex Machina is only 8th on my list because its rewatch value I find actually kind of low. I hate to say it, but I do. So Ex Machina being in 8th place, I hate to say it, but that's how I feel about it. It's good. It has some cool twists, but after you've seen it one time, you can rewatch it for the special effects and how they were able to pull off the AI and stuff like that. And some of its messaging is good. The performances, Oscar Isaac's good. Alicia Vikander's good in it. Donald Gleason, he's pretty solid. But the rewatch value isn't all there. It's just not all there for me. And I want it to be at times. It's one of those films you watch once and maybe you come back and you visit here or there. It's just, I can't put it any higher. Films that are ranked up here higher than this are films I would rewatch again. And then number 1 would be the one I'm most likely to rewatch again and that I would want to rewatch again. And I might even watch again tonight would be my number 1, and we'll get to that. So Ex Machina is an 8th place. In 7th place, we have The Spectacular Now. This is one of A24's first ever releases. And I can tell you right here, right now, I love The Spectacular Now. I didn't think I would, but Miles Teller is amazing in the film. Shailene Woodley is great in it. Shailene Woodley proves that she's a great dramatic actress in The Spectacular Now. My favorite performance is her in The Spectacular Now. And Miles Teller, my favorite performance of him, is in The Spectacular Now. They both have great chemistry together on screen. You could realistically see these two in these characters being a couple in this film, and that's good. And the script is well done. The jokes, they land. It's not forced. So I found that very, the film story is very grounded, relatable. Characters are well crafted and relatable. And I was following it. And I'm not one for romance films, but this one gripped me. So, gotta give kudos to The Spectacular Now. So that's why it's ranked so high on the list. 6th place is The Lighthouse. This is by Robert Eggers. I have not seen The Witch. This film makes me want to check it out, but I'm cautious about it because I've heard divisive things about The Witch, but I've seen a lot more positives and mostly positive things about The Lighthouse. I haven't really seen any negatives for The Lighthouse yet. A few here or there, but those are people who really don't enjoy like independent art house films, art house cinema, indie films. Usually it's those types of people who aren't enjoying films like The Lighthouse. But The Lighthouse, what's so good about that is it's one of the most original films made just a year ago in how it was made. A 4:3, I believe, aspect ratio, and black and white, and it only focuses on 2 characters throughout the entire film. Only 2 characters in the entire film, 4:3 aspect ratio, black and white. That's some of the most original concepts for a film. The pillar box presentation, as it is coined, was able to create a sense of claustrophobia and create fear without having to show scary things on the screen. We were subconsciously feeling that without realizing it, and that was what was so great about it. And you can show disturbing things here and there and odd imagery just to crank it up when you need to, but you don't have to constantly do that because of the presentation and the aspect ratio. And it's shot in black and white, makes it feel grimy, gritty, dark, not colorful and optimistic, as this film is meant to be dark and gritty, and they're struggling to keep their sanity while stranded on this island. And it's also a period piece set in the 1890s. And it feels like a film that could have came out in the 1890s. They pull off that time frame very well. The performances by Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson. Robert Pattinson, some people think Robert Pattinson had a better performance in The Lighthouse. You can argue that. I personally prefer his performance in Good Time. They're both great performances. Willem Dafoe, he deserved an Oscar nom. They both did. Pattinson and Dafoe both deserved an Oscar nom for The Lighthouse. Their performances are both amazing. And in 5th place, The Sandman, Adam Sandler, Uncut Gems. When I first watched this movie, the first time I watched it, I watched it and I'm like, that movie was really good. It had a slow first act, a good second act, and one hell of a third act. Then I watched it again and I realized, wait, that first act was leading to the second, and the second was leading to the third. It built, but the building, the tension was created a lot earlier than I first realized when I first watched it. So it was one of those films that I gained that massive appreciation for upon multiple watches. And this film, along with Good Time, have made the Safdie brothers one of my favorite directors. So now I'm all in. I want to see what they do next. If it's with A24, if it's with some other company, I'm all in with the Safdie brothers. I want to see what they do next because I really enjoyed Uncut Gems and Good Time. Just really good. I'm not going to go too in depth about the story, other than that Adam Sandler plays this charismatic Jewish jeweler set in around the Philly area. I know it's around Philly because Philadelphia is like a location that they go to in the film. in the story. So that's where I would really put it up there. It is very good, and the character, Howard Ratner is the character's name. He's a high stakes gambler. He can't. He's kind of addicted to it. He can't prevent himself from placing that next high stakes sports bet, and it gets him backed up in a corner. He does some things that you would be looking at him like, what in the hell are you thinking? Why are you doing this? And he goes out and he does it. And it backs himself up in a corner. It's not smart decisions, but he just can't stop himself from placing bet after bet after bet because he's just chasing another win, another win, another win. And they're able to create that tension, the Safdie brothers are, throughout the entirety of it. And just very, very well done. So that would put Uncut Gems at number 5. And at number 4, I have Room, starring Brie Larson, Jacob Tremblay. First time I heard about this film, I knew it was the one after I did some slight research here and there, that it was the one Brie Larson won her Oscar for. And I'm not going to lie, I didn't want to buy this at first. But I saw all the praise. Every review I've watched praises Brie Larson's performance, Jacob Tremblay's performance, the direction of it, the script. Some people have been calling it a masterpiece. Some people have been calling it amazing. I never watched or read a negative thing about it. So, and the fact that Brie Larson's performance was praised so heavily, I took the gamble on it. I bought it on a whim, watched it, love it. Not as much of the films that are ranked higher, but I do love it. It is 4th place for a reason, because of that. It's not in my top 3. And the film is going to be next to and it's the first of my top 3. Some people will be like, you really put that as your top 3? But when I get to it, let me explain. 3rd place, the film's directed by Stephen Knight, starring Tom Hardy. He's in a car for an hour and a half. Lock. If you told somebody that Tom Hardy sat in a car for an hour and a half driving somewhere, and he gets phone calls for an hour and a half, and a director is able to pull off tension and execute a film well, and it's a good film, people will laugh in your face and say that's the dumbest thing they've ever heard. It's impossible. It's going to happen. It's like, how can that be entertaining? How can that be gripping? How can that be tension? How can that tension be created? Watch it and you'll see. Tom Hardy's performance, that film, Lock, was his best performance of his entire career. And he's been in a lot of things. From comic book films. He's been in The Dark Knight Rises, Venom. He's been in Mad Max Fury Road. He's been in many different things. Many different things. I'm just listing off the comic book side of him. He's been in Peaky Blinders. I could go on and on about the stuff Tom Hardy's been in. But this film shows what he's able to do all around. He's able to it's his best performance I've ever seen. And if you watch it, you'll see just how good his performance is. So in 3rd place is Locke. The character Ivan Locke. Just, what a character, man. What a character, what a film. Very well executed. 2nd place. I didn't like this film that much. I've only seen it one time, and I thought it was good. It didn't deserve the massive praise it was getting. Then I let it sit for a bit. And then I started to realize, wow, this is original. They could have just sold this off as a horror flick and just got a quick cash grab. But they didn't. It's a ghost story starring Casey Affleck, Rooney Mara. It's signature for the 10-minute pie sequence. I'd lean on more the positive side, but slightly. Like, this is the positive side. This is stupid. This is the positive side. I'm more like right here in the middle, slightly to the left. I acknowledge what it was trying to go for. I think it was a little overdone, but it was still landed for me. The film has a lot of long takes for an hour and a half long flick. Very original premise. I loved what they were able to do to tell a story about someone passing on but not being fully gone and just watching time fly by without them having control over it. Very intriguing story that can get a lot of emotions pulled from it. It's one hell of a story when executed correctly, and it's just so riveting, really. And I know that's a word that you wouldn't really think would be used. You think, oh, they just try and short sell it, be it a horror flick, cash grab. We all know that's not what A24 is. But if you watch if you read the plot synopsis, didn't watch the trailers, then started to watch the film, you'd go into this expecting a horror film. You really would. What instead you get is this drama about the passing of time and how we don't have control over it, but the things we leave behind, and how maybe our loved ones aren't really gone. Maybe they're out there somewhere and they're just watching us go through time and they have no choice but to watch it. Maybe they want to do something. Maybe they want to help. Maybe they want to say that they're there, but they can't. And that's such a powerful message to go for, and it's executed so well. So very, very well done. It's not my number one. It battled with it for a bit, but my number one, directed by Greta Gerwig, Saoirse Ronan, Lady Bird. That movie is a masterpiece. It may not be the most original concept, but the writing is flawless. Saoirse Ronan's performance, flawless. The chemistry between her and Laurie Metcalf, the actress that plays the mother, flawless. Everything is flawless in the crafting and the execution of it. I've related to the Lady Bird character as a person who has a dream, wants to go after it. Their family's not fully supportive because they're iffy about it. They don't know how it's going to work out. They don't know how they're going to be able to support her in that. And I found that relatable. Everybody goes to that. Everybody graduates high school and goes to that phase where they either don't know what they want to do or know what they want to do, and not every single person in their family is fully supportive. They want them to fall back on something else. They want them to go to some local school rather than go to some major place. So I always found that relatable. I've always had those phases of wondering, would I go to the big campus, a smaller campus, local school? So I always found that relatable, and they're able to do that. And it's one of the few films, Lady Bird, that when the credits rolled, I went, it's over? Like, I wanted the credits to roll and it'd say end of part 1, flip disc for part 2 or something. Like, I wanted the film to keep going. I didn't want it to end. I felt bad when it ended because I wanted to see more. Like, I loved the Christine character. Loved the character. I'd want to see a Lady Bird 2 just because the character was so good. But that's what's so good about it. It's meant to be a one and done. The character is very well crafted. And I completely understand, yes, I want that character, woohoo, but it would be shortchanged. It would be terrible to go after that and not have, there's no reason to have a part 2 to it. There's really not. But, so that wraps up my list. All the A24 films I've seen. If you like what you see, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you can be notified when I drop another video. And I appreciate every single one of you watching. And watching an A24 film, you will not regret it. If you're a fellow cinephile like me, you're going to find so many films and more on top to fall in love with, as have I. And there's still some ones I have yet to see. I haven't even seen Moonlight yet, as you can tell. I haven't seen Waves. I haven't seen my fair share of A24 films I've yet to see. Green Room, The Disaster Artist. I mean, there's so many other ones I have not seen yet that I have yet to see that I'm going to be checking out. So, very, very excited to check those out down the road. I'll have reviews up for those. And maybe this ranking, I might do a complete massive haul ranking, but that'll be way later down the road. Again, I appreciate you guys stopping by. If you like what you see, please drop a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you can be notified every time I drop a video. And if you have an A24 film ranking you want to post down in the comments. Let's create a ranking discussion. I will, and we can all read them, and we can all have our own little fun debates over where a film should rank. Is it number 1, 10, 5? I find people who really look into things like that and create their own reasons for, hey, a film should be here, it should be there. I find that interesting. So why not create that type of a discussion? Why not do that? So, like I said, much appreciated. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, comment down below. I'll see you guys in the next one. Appreciate y'all stopping by. And don't feel crazy for watching movies all the time. If you're a fellow cinephile, keep watching movies. Keep watching movies all the time.